What's going on? This is your boy Porter Rock 77. Welcome back to my channel. Thank you for listening. And I want to talk about today Aaron Greenberg's tweet about Year of the Scorpio, and just want to give my opinions on that. Just a little bit of commentary. He tweeted out, tweet 17, Year of the Scorpio. The Xbox community is excited. They're looking forward to. Well, a lot of gamers are looking forward to more information on Project Scorpio, and hopefully, I don't need this. Well, hopefully, more information will come out. Maybe during E3, maybe Microsoft will have. A separate press conference or something, maybe a console unveiling. Who knows? But let's look at the term "You're the Scorpio" and what it means for some, and what it means to Aaron Greenberg. Well, maybe he's just bringing up the excitement. It's gonna be new hardware, and it's gonna be interesting hardware. Um, on the recent multiplayer podcast on Zair's channel, I had a conversation with K Mega on that podcast, and he brought up the point that uh, new hardware will always trump games. Um, and the reason why the conversation started was we were all talking about the possibility of God of War being released during the holidays, and if that's Sony's strategy to compete with Scorpio, uh, especially when it was revealed by the developers that he was able to play the game from start to finish. So I guess the gameplay aspect wise is done. We're not so sure on everything else, like the voiceover, the acting, cutscenes, things like that. But for the most part, the actual gameplay of the game is done, which could lead that the game could come out end of the year. K Mega's opinion was that new hardware will always trump games, and I provided an example that that statement is not true, and we didn't have to assume uh, because that was a situation PS3 ran into in 2006. You see, in November 2006, the PS3 launched, new hardware, um, and the Xbox 360 by that point was already out for a year. But during that same month, Gears of War came out in November 2006, and the combination and that game pushed 360 to outsell the PS3. It was a big killer app for that holiday season. It was a new IP. It was a huge IP, and it was something lots of gamers, regardless if you were PlayStation, Xbox, PC, everybody wanted to play that. And you compare that to new hardware, which only had like resistance and stuff. The IPs or the games that PS3 was bringing wasn't enough. So that's where I made the disagreement that new hardware doesn't always conquer. And another thing is also the price, and that's where the point of this video come into play. Um, is it the year of the Scorpio? So when people think of year of the Scorpio, what's the expectation? Do people expect for Scorpio to dominate the industry? Is there an expectation that this will reverse the current trend of what's going on of PlayStation's dominance of this gen? Will Scorpio now um, switch roles and stuff because it's the more powerful hardware? Um, some gamers have this idea that the reason why PlayStation 4 is winning is because of power, simply because of 1080p versus 720p, and that's pretty much explains everything. Um, and I disagree. I always disagree with that point. Is it a factor? Yes, it's a factor. But I think the reason why the P became a factor was because of power in comparison to price. You see, when the Xbox One launched alongside the PS4 in the same month, the PS4 was $400 and the Xbox was 500, and people were just trying to figure out why is the Xbox One $500. The first thought is power. That's always the first thought. Is it power? Is that why we're paying $500 for Xbox One? And when people were looking at the games, they're like, wait a minute, the PlayStation 4 is the one with higher resolution. And higher resolution doesn't always determine graphics. You got to factor in, textures and particle effects and lighting and all that stuff. But to keep it simple, paying $500 for a console that runs a game at 720p when you could pay 400 for a console that runs games at 1080p and with the same graphical effects just didn't make sense. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's one major reason why power came into play was because people were trying to understand what were they getting for $500 on the Xbox One, and what some people either they didn't realize it or they tried to ignore was Microsoft was trying to sell you a multimedia device for $500. It wasn't a gaming console. It was a multimedia device. It was a device that was going to connect to your cable or to, some type, cable subscription or direct TV subscription. Um, it was voice activated and connect how the features. You could do all this stuff, Snap and Skype, and it was just a whole bunch of stuff that was non gaming related, but it was media centered and controlled, and it was a huge part of the Xbox One vision. You see, Xbox One and visual vision wasn't gaming; it was gaming was just part of the vision. And for something that's supposed to be a gaming console, it was a bad vision, and Xbox paid the price for it. Between that vision, the way Microsoft unveiled the Xbox One, which was terrible. It was May 2013, terrible way to introduce your console because it had nothing to do with gaming. It was primarily, again, multimedia. And then the talk about always connected, always online DRM. Uh, Microsoft even damaged controlling it when gamers first heard about this, where you couldn't play used games and stuff. Don Matrick, one of his reply was, um, "There's a console that's not always connected, and that's a 360." And that rubbed gamers the wrong way as well. Now, ultimately, the backlash prevented from Microsoft actually implementing this system, but it was too late. The damage was done because you're talking maybe a couple of weeks of damage control, and by the time Microsoft realized, all right, we can't do this when we launch the console, it's already too late. Millions of gamers changed their mind, and Xbox One had a bad reputation. Now, ultimately, Microsoft tried to make amends. You saw with new IPs and stuff. But here's the thing: there's a difference. You can't give games a participation trophy. And what I mean by that is Xbox One did, Phil Spencer, he tried to push new IPs. Sunset Overdrive, Quantum Break, Recore, uh, I don't know, some other games and stuff like that. But Microsoft did make an attempt. But the games can't just be just a AAA game because that was what they spent money on. The game has to be an actual killer app. That's how you fix, an image of a console. That's what Sony had to do with PS3. The first 3 years of PS3 was terrible. Blu-ray player, the cell processor, that didn't mean anything. And games like Heavenly Sword and Ratchet and Clank Crack at Time and Motorstorm, those weren't games that was gonna make people pay $400, $500, $600, whatever for a PS3. It wasn't that. Eventually, whether it's luck or whatever, Sony started getting great IPs, top killer IPs like Uncharted. Especially when Uncharted 2 came out, that shit was huge. Demon Souls was a huge IP, which led to the multiplat Dark Souls and stuff like that. Infamous was another big IP that people started enjoying. You need big IPs to write a train, and at this point, Microsoft, some of the games like Sunset Overdrive, from what I hear, and the players playing are good, but they're not big blockbuster IPs that makes people want to go out and buy consoles. You know what I'm saying? Or forgive Microsoft for the mistakes that they've done. Those aren't exactly the IPs yet and stuff, right? So now Microsoft's banking on Scorpio. They figured, hey, it's power. It's always been about power. We're gonna give you power. But again, if you think that was the only issue, then yeah, I can see why you would think Scorpio, 2017 would be the year of Scorpio, and everything's gonna be fixed. It's not. It was never. Power was only a part of it. It was a whole bunch of things, and I think other things that compounded was some people's attitude towards games. Sony was doing a great job providing indies. So what do gamers on the other side say? Oh, indies don't matter. It's the indie station. Who buys consoles for indies? Well, as you can see, indie games have been a huge part of this gen. A lot of gamers want to play indies, and there's nothing wrong with that. Um, and now you're seeing it again with, oh no, before that, multiplats. The exclusive, time content or exclusive content or time exclusives. Well, damage control that. Say, no, they're stupid. They shouldn't be paying for that. Well, guess what? If some of your favorite games are multiplats, right? And one console has the advantage of extra content or getting the content first, then some people are going to gravitate to a console because they don't want to wait. Big examples of Call of Duty. Whether people like it or not, a lot of gamers, especially if they're into YouTube streaming and stuff, they're going to play Call of Duty on the PS4 because they're not going to wait 30 days to play the map packs, especially if they stream or their commentary or content providers on YouTube and Twitch and stuff like that. You're not going to wait, especially if you have a big channel and stuff like that. You want the content as soon as possible. Same thing with Destiny and stuff like that, or if you're just fans of the game, period, why would you want to wait 30 days, 6 months, a year, or not have the content at all? Why would you play on the platform that doesn't even get the content, if that's your favorite game and that's the game you want to buy. You know what I'm saying? There was damage control on that. And then finally, now the damage control is on Japanese games. Now, apparently, it's Western games versus Japanese games, which is not the case. It may seem like that on Xbox, but it's not like that on PlayStation. The PlayStation gamers aren't arguing Western versus Japanese games and what sells and what charts. No, we just get it. You know, if it's on our console and we like it, we buy it. If we don't like it, we don't buy it. That's it. That's all it is on PlayStation. We don't worry about whether or not the reason why this game's not on it is because it don't sell well. You know, but on the Xbox community, you're having those conversations simply because you're trying to understand or you're trying to rationalize getting less game support from the Japanese industry when it should just be you just get it, and if you buy it, you buy it. If you don't, you don't. Don't worry about it. You know what I'm saying? So it's not a Western versus Japanese. What it really is, it's one console with primarily just Western support versus a console that has the same Western support, if not maybe better, plus Japanese support. That's really the scenario. It's not Western versus Japanese support. It's two consoles, one primarily just Western versus one that has Western and good Japanese support, right? But anyway, so how does this get involved with Scorpio? How is this plays the thing? See, the thing about Scorpio is it's going to be a beast console, and diehard Xbox fans who are going to get this, you're going to have a great time with it because it's the most powerful version of the platform you enjoy, and the games you enjoy, and you're going to get the very best graphics that you can get in console gaming at this point in time, all right? And it just so happens to be it's going to be pushing the games that you guys prefer and that you enjoy, all right? The thing is, that's all it's going to do. It's just gonna because it's just an Xbox One that's just more powerful, and it's just gonna make the games that you enjoy better looking. But the question is, if the majority of fans don't enjoy Xbox One games, taking a game that most fans don't enjoy and turning it into 4K doesn't make the game better, or it's not gonna make the game interesting. You know, in the podcast, multiplayer podcast, I brought the point, you know, that a God of War Pro probably will outsell a $500 Scorpio, mainly because what are you going to do with a Scorpio? For the average gamer, not for the hardcore Xbox gamers or the Xbox fans. You know, if you're a fan of Xbox, not so much them, because I know you guys are going to buy the console. I'm just talking about an average gamer who has no one way or another, but the gamer likes, you know, God of War and stuff. When gamers see God of War, you know, and they're like, oh shit, God of War's out, and they compare it to Scorpio, they're gonna ask what they're gonna do with what they're gonna get paying $500 for a Scorpio, and is it play Sea of Thieves in 4K, in native 4K? Is that really Crackdown in native 4K? Is that really gonna sell the system? You understand what I'm saying? Maybe we'll see some type of huge IP at E3 or whatever. But it's just simply saying that it's a console that's native 4K is not going to be enough. Again, when PS4 was outselling the Xbox One, it wasn't just simply because it was a more powerful console. It was price, which was $100 cheaper. It had a vision of just being a gaming console. Had indies, multiplats, timed exclusives, or permanent exclusive content. Or got a lot of games first, while you had to wait on Xbox. It was a whole slew of things. Japanese support now. So it's a whole slew of things that the PlayStation just did better over the Xbox that made gamers gravitate more towards the PlayStation. It wasn't just simply, okay, this console's 1080p, this was 720p, there you go, I'm buying the PlayStation 4. It's really not that simple. And I think a lot of gamers do think it's that simple, but they're going to realize this November that no, it's not that simple. Now, some people will say, oh, it's only because you guys are now changing narrative. Listen, you guys could say about this whole narrative thing, gamers are going to buy what they gamers are going to buy. And at the end of the day, it usually comes down to the console with the best support, with the best catalog or library that's in their opinion. And I think Microsoft, with the Xbox, push services and features more than just games, you know. And again, it's not just new IPs, it's everything. You have to take everything. You have to take the indies, which was a big part. I don't think Microsoft did a good job of pushing indies. You also have to go after the big multiplats. You have to go after those. Because again, a lot of gamers, their favorite games are from third party. And if you could get those gamers with exclusive content, then gamers will gravitate to your product. You know, but I don't think Scorpio's just gonna be simply, hey, we do native 4K, buy us. You know, I don't think it's gonna be that simple. I don't think a lot of gamers are gonna jump on that train as much as you guys think it will. Especially now, where some of the biggest IPs that are being developed right now is on the PlayStation side. You have Last of Us 2, you got Spider Man, which is huge, God of War, Horizon Zero Dawn comes out in February. So you got some big things. I think especially if something like let's say like a combo of God of War and Spider Man. I don't see a lot of gamers choosing Scorpio over Pro or even the base variant. And I think the base PS4 will sell more than anything else just to play Spider Man and God of War and The Last of Us. Those are just killer apps that are just too huge. Now, if Scorpio was an actual next gen console, that would be different because now you're paying $500, and this is just my assumption that's $500 given the power. But when you pay that money and it's a next generation console, I think all gamers can relate to that because now you're buying a piece of hardware that's doing something beyond what this generation is able to do. All right, but the Scorpio's not doing that. What the Scorpio is doing is taking games this generation and just ensures that it runs in native 4K. Um, with 4K graphics, 4K textures, it will look better. It's a better looking game. It's a better looking version of what we're playing now, but it's not a next generation game. You know. Also, what I see might hurt Scorpio a little bit is the fact that this is a second upgrade to the Xbox One within the same generation. And what I mean by that is the Xbox One S is an upgrade. It's an actual upgrade of the vanilla. So a lot of people bought the Xbox One S and enjoying it, and now the Scorpio comes out a year later, and some people are gonna be like, "Wait a minute! I just bought an upgraded Xbox One. Now you made another Xbox that's upgraded," and they're gonna ask, "What do we get out of this one?" And the answer is, "Oh, you get native 4K gaming." You know, but then once that's put out there, some gamers are gonna ask, "Isn't that what I'm getting now?" Because I see the commercials and it says it's the only console that does UHD movie streaming and gaming. UHD. So are we getting UHD gaming now? And then they're gonna learn that no, you're getting upscaled 4K gaming, not true native 4K gaming. And then there's gonna be some turbulence. I guarantee it's not gonna be it's not gonna be 100% happily accepted by everybody, especially people who bought the Xbox One S this year as their first Xbox, and now they're gonna learn a year later a newer one came out, and they're gonna ask, what's going on? Why is this one out? What is that one doing that my Xbox One S doesn't do? So that I think that's gonna come because I think there's a lot of people who still don't know about the Scorpio or don't understand anything about the Scorpio. So it's gonna be interesting how Microsoft handles that PR and stuff. But as far as I'm thinking, Year of the Scorpio, not so much. Because one, also, when does it come out? If it comes out in November, you're talking the last 2 months of the year. You know, what are we going to talk about the first 10 months? If Scorpio's here for the last 2 months, then who's filling the void for the first 10 months? Is it just going to be talk and specs and information? That's not a good way to say Year of the Scorpio for 2017 when 90% of 2017 you're not part of it. You know what I'm saying? But it's gonna be interesting to see more what's going on with Scorpio and stuff. But do I think it's gonna be this huge messiah that's gonna bring Xbox back to the top? I don't think so. What I think it's gonna do, it's gonna provide the Xbox fan base with the best versions of games that they enjoy playing. You know what I'm saying? And they're gonna get the best versions of multiplats as well. They're gonna get the very best versions of multiplats. It's gonna be a powerful platform, and the games are gonna look great. Native 4K for many of those games for the developers that's able to do it, and that's my opinion. But I think that's far as it's gonna go. It's not gonna be this huge behemoth seller that's gonna outsell the PS4. I don't think so. Not at $500. $399 be more competitive, but I think due to the power and what Microsoft is going for, especially if it uses these new architectures from AMD, like the Vega and the Ryzen architecture, it's going to be at least 500. And this $500 console is not going to blow out the PlayStation 4 or the Pro, especially when we're going to see price drops this year on both products. So you could potentially see a 350 Pro, and then maybe during Black Friday, $300 Pros, special Black Friday deals, and the PS4 Slim, dollars. So you're gonna see some ridiculous, crazy deals and stuff, and especially if they tie it to God of War bundles, Spider Man. You know, And another thing, this whole next couple of months is going to be mostly PlayStation talk because PlayStation has a lot of the exclusives locked down month after month after month with release dates. This month is Gravity Rush and Yakuza. Next month is Neo and Horizon. March, you got MLB. And then sometime down the line, Persona 5. And then this Near. And then you got Ace Combat and stuff like that. So there's a slew of other games. And then, of course, Sony got their own press conference in June to talk about more games and stuff. So you're gonna hear a lot of conversations of over and over, and then also you got the marketing rights this year, which is gonna kick in. Starting with Mass Effect in March, and then you're gonna hear more talk about Destiny 2, especially at E3, and then the marketing rights for Destiny. You might even see a pro custom bundle, like kind of like what Sony did with Destiny. You had the white console, you might see that again for the pro, and then Sony once again got the marketing rights to Red Dead Redemption, so you might see custom bundles for that or custom console for that again. So you're just gonna see a lot. You're gonna see PlayStation on the map month after month, conversation after conversation. Uh, so if Microsoft really wants to get in full swing, they have to advertise and they have to push their games out early. They can't hold on to the games they plan to release in 2017. They can't hold on and wait till the last minute. Games like Scalebound, Crackdown 3, Sea of Thieves, Cuphead and stuff. They got to release these games early and fast and advertise them. Push those information out there. They can't just stay quiet and just have podcasts talk about Scorpio for the next 4 or 5 months and make assumptions. That's just you gotta get the advertisement out there. Anyway, that's just a quick video on that, talking about that. You're the Scorpio? I don't think so. I think it's gonna be a great console. I think you guys are gonna have many Xbox gamers are gonna enjoy the hell out of that console and gonna have great looking games. But I don't think it's gonna steer the ship or gonna make Xbox more competitive in the market. I don't think it's gonna dethrone PlayStation 4 as it is. I just don't see that happening, especially at $500. But anyway, that's my opinion. Let me know what you think. Subscribe, like, comment. Hit me up on Twitter. Link is in the description box and stuff. And let's just have the conversation. All right? Hit me up on Twitter. Let me know if there's any topics you want me to cover, make videos on. And stay tuned for my 60 Frames No Light podcast every Wednesday, 7 p.m. Eastern. I have a great crew with me on that podcast, and I always try to get some great guests. And we just talk about and comment on gaming and stuff like that. All right? Anyway, you guys have a good night. Take care.